we don't think of, oh, well, this car goes here, this house goes here, this particular stock goes here. No, 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 no. When I first started out doing estate planning, I ended up meeting with a lot of people that were referrals from clients, other professionals, particularly financial advisors. They needed to get estate planning done. That's what they were told. We sat down, I started walking through the different options, started looking at the difference between a will and a trust. Here what the different positions are. Here's what the different people that you have in your life would be doing things for you if you become incapacitated or if you pass on, and here's all this stuff. And it just became this big kind of overwhelming thing, in particular because all they ever heard of was, oh, we should just do a will. Well, what we're going to cover today is 3 estate hacks that are going to make things so much easier on your end so you don't have all of this confusion getting thrown into the process and just making it more complicated than it needs to be. I'm Jeffrey G. Marsocci, the plain English attorney, and we are going to give you these 3 hacks. The first one, you just need to make sure that you are settling on the big 4 questions and you're coming up with your lists and what you want done. All right. This is a simple thing that we work with our clients when we sit down in that estate strategy session. We walk through, who do you want to handle financial things for you if you can't? And I keep it as simple as that. If we put all these documents together, everything's kind of covered. And now the crisis hits. And the way I describe it is you end up in a car accident in a coma for 3 months. Somebody needs to step in, pay the bills, move money around, keep everything going so that by the time you get out of the hospital, you're not left with things being foreclosed on, utilities turned off, and this big financial mess. A lot of probate attorneys downplay probate because the less clients understand it, the easier it is for them to keep the system going by just doing a will. If that wasn't explained to you, drop a comment. And if this was helpful, please like and subscribe. Because really, that's part of what their job is going to be for whomever you pick. They're going to keep you going so that when you're ready to take things back, you're okay. But people often just think in the estate sense, well, what if I die? Well, no, it's really both. So what we look for is one person. If they can't do it, we've got a backup person. And then if they can't do it, we have a third just in case. We don't need to get into who's the trustee, who's the executor. This is just the first question is financial. The second question, who do you trust to handle healthcare decisions for you? So when you're in that coma, you're in the hospital, who's going to talk to the doctors, decide on courses of treatment, surgery A versus surgery B, who's going to sign all that paperwork that always comes along with it. We need one person, then a backup, and then a third just in case. Same thing. But it could be very different people. So as you're getting into thinking about all of this stuff, those are the first 2 questions. The third is, where do you want your stuff to go after you pass on? Now, there are a lot of details that can go into this, and we look for a lot of different contingencies. The big thing I recommend is think of percentages. And when I'm sitting down with my clients in the estate strategy session, we don't think of, oh, well, this car goes here, this house goes here, this particular stock goes here. No, 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 no. Oh, it's 3 kids. I want them to get everything equally. And so it's done in thirds. And then we go another layer deep. Well, what if one of your kids passes on before you do? Do you want their share to go down to their kids? And that's a very common thing. So I go a couple of layers deep, and sometimes my clients don't really like the discussion because, and I joke with them and tell them, look, I'm killing off your loved ones in these scenarios to see where the money goes. But we want to build that in too. Fourth question, a lot of times my clients who are coming in don't even really need to get there. It's who's going to raise your minor children if anything happens to you. And so if their kids are all over 18, we don't have to worry about naming guardians. But if we do, we go through the same thing. It's one person, not couples. One person, then a second, and then a third just in case person. I'm just going to make a quick note on that, but I've got other videos that'll go into why. You don't really want your brother and sister-in-law named as guardians in case they're divorced. What you really mean is it's your brother and your sister-in-law is kind of along for the ride. Okay. Always assume that if it's a couple you're trying to name that they're divorced. Do you still want to do that? And the answer is no. So those are the big four questions. All right, so what's the second? You get that together, you've got your list, you know who you want doing certain things. Second hack is, look, just read up a little bit on exactly what the options are and do it in a very kind of straightforward manner. You want to know what the different documents are and what they do. Now, for me, this is kind of a required reading thing for my clients. It just makes everything so much easier. It's in my book, Estate Planning Basics, which I also have in a couple of different formats at freetrustcourse.com. Again, freetrustcourse.com. This is just general advice. It's kind of good in all 50 states to get things put together and start thinking about things the right way. But in that book, I walk through, here's what a will and a trust is and what the difference is. Here's probate. Here's how things work. Here's how a revocable trust avoids probate. Here's what funding a trust means. And then we also go through, here are the different documents and just a basic overview of what they do. Again, this is required reading for my clients because when things were just so confusing, it was because I was trying to describe it without walking through this whole kind of course of action. Here's the different things to look through. And we really spent a lot of time putting that book together so that it guides you through it, so you know about 85% of what you need to know as the client when you come in, so we can get straight to those big four questions. You can ask questions about, well, does a trust do this specific thing? You're not asking what's the difference between a will and a trust. Back in when I was starting everything out, the difference between a will and a trust was an hour and a half long, and they still had follow-up questions and were still confused. If you read the book, actually read the book, then you're going to know by the time you get through that which direction you're going in. Is a will going to be the cornerstone of your plan, or is a revocable living trust going to be? When I have clients who say they read the book and then they come in and they sit down and they go, what's the difference between a will and a trust? I know they haven't read the book. So that's your second thing. Third thing is you're going to want to choose the right attorney. Now, would I love for everybody to come to me in North Carolina? Well, yeah, but we have to be able to be a good fit. So what we have is a specific process that walks through, here's the strategy session. You've already read the book. You've kind of done homework ahead of time so that you understand the difference between a will and a trust and what the different documents are. We get into those big four questions and we can come away after that first hour and a half session. All right, we know where we're going to go. We know what we're going to do, and we can really get underway. And then we do an estate summary meeting to make sure we're nailing everything down, see if there were any changes that you wanted to make along the way. And then the next step, we're actually looking at the documents. A lot of attorneys, they're not like that. A lot of estate attorneys, that, especially the ones that kind of do it as a side gig, it's, okay, you answered a couple of questions. You don't necessarily know exactly what they mean. Here's the documents. Tell us if it's good, and we can just go ahead and come in and sign it. What I found is my clients didn't really understand what was going on and what the documents did, and they still came away very frustrated because of that. They had a plan, and it could have been the best plan in the world, but they didn't understand it. All right, and I'm going to come back to that as a bonus point at the end. All right, so when we're talking about choosing the right attorney, you're going to want someone who's going to line up with what you want. If you prefer, all right, I just want it cheap, I want to give you the answers, and then I want the documents to come in and just sign them at the next meeting, no big deal. All right, that's probably not me, because we want our clients to understand it. And so we go through that process and we go through that flow chart without taking on too much at any one given point. If that's a fit for you, then, and you're in North Carolina, then we're happy to help. All right, so let's talk about now the bonus one. And this is kind of a big one because it gets down to cost. And a lot of times people want prices over the phone, and I'm just not going to do that because I know what they think is simple might be complex, or they may think everything is complex. And really it boils down to something simple. We're not going to know until we've had that first hour and a half strategy session. By the time we're done with that, though, okay, I know exactly what it's going to cost. Sometimes there are a lot more questions. Sometimes there's fewer, but I can then give a flat rate fee. And that's what we prefer to do because at this point, there's price certainty. My clients know this is exactly what it's going to cost to do the plan that we discussed in the strategy session, and it's going to get me where I need to go. Great. If attorneys charge by the hour, if you ask a lot of questions, it's going to add to the bill. And so when I used to do that, I used to charge by the hour because, well, that's what I was told attorneys do. Okay. I charged by the hour. No one would ask questions. They'd be very frustrated and they'd just be all upset, even though I gave them the best plan that fit their particular goals. All right. So those are the three big hacks. Let's just go ahead and recap that. First, you focus on the big four questions. 2, understand what the different documents are. And we've got that resource at freetrustcourse.com. And then third, choose an attorney that you fit with, especially when it comes to things like their process and how they handle things, and provide you with what the plan is supposed to be and educate you to the extent that you're willing. Those are the big three. And then in the bonus, understand whether it's going to be a flat rate fee or it's going to be by the hour. All right. So what I found is my clients are a lot happier when they go through that freetrustcourse.com. They know exactly which direction they're going. And if they get that free resource and they decide, look, I'm not the attorney for them, well, that's fine. But you've gotten a good education anyway. All right. So please go ahead and again, check out that course, freetrustcourse.com. And as I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And whatever you do, make it a great day.